So we get requests for this topic all the time, obviously, because it changes all the time. We were just kind of discussing before we got the webinar officially started that this is an industry, a set of tools, an ecospace that evolves too fast for us to keep up. So what we try to do is just look at all the news, look at all the ways people are using it, and try to distill it down, and then make sure that we're sharing that with our constituency, because there are amazing tools that save so much time and do so much work for us. But there are a lot of pitfalls, not just in the usage, but in the ethics space of AI. So we're joined today by Justin Ware. So glad he agreed to hop on and share a little bit about. He is actually an Emmy winner. So a lot of you probably don't have an Emmy. I don't, but he's an Emmy winner. And in the marketing space, in the nonprofit space, knows a lot about video and AI, and just will be a wonderful expert for us today to kind of chat through back and forth. So we have some topics that we're going to walk through and some questions that we're going to ask, but we really also want to be able to use the chat feature and the live here. So if y'all have questions about your own organizations, how you're using AI, if you have suggestions, definitely throw those in the chat. You can interrupt us as we go. We'll have kind of the last 10, 15 minutes be discussion only after we get through kind of the pieces. But if you have questions as we go ahead and drop those in the chat, or you can even raise your hand and unmute yourself and join the conversation. So we end up learning a lot from these too. We'll probably have to do this again in 3 months when AI has changed again, but we'll get you caught up at least through March 1st of 2025. So if you're, many of you probably watching in the future, that's kind of where we stop now. So if you're like, oh, you talked about a tool that is different now or exists, this is, we're recording this on February 28th, 2025, and this is where the state of AI is right now. So Justin, anything you want to do to introduce yourself? Anything that I might have missed?
No, that's good. I've got a long history working in nonprofits, and Camcorder AI right now is not necessarily focused on nonprofits, although I think the tool could absolutely be used for any organization, nonprofit, for profit, what have you, because we use AI to expedite the video editing process. You can create a lot more video content. That's what Camcorder AI is about. But yeah, as Jake mentioned, I've got a long history in content production, in video in particular, digital marketing. I've worked at places like BWF and Ruffalo Noel Levitz and Scale Funder. So yeah, I've really spent most of my career in the nonprofit and especially in the higher education space. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. I think nonprofits in particular have a tremendous amount to gain because at its core, at a minimum, AI can help you save so much time on doing especially mundane tasks like
Right.
drafting an agenda or an email or something like that. And in the nonprofit space where resources are so limited and everyone is pulled in different directions and probably wears lots of different hats, having not a mastery of AI, but just a basic understanding of how to use tools like Claude and Chat GPT. And if you want to get into image generation, things like ideogram and whatnot, it really can help you multiply yourself without having to scale up your time.
Sure. And I want to get into a question that brought up from what you just said, but before we do, can we just kind of briefly, just from a top level, why it's important for nonprofits to even establish AI guidelines in the first place? And why can't we just ignore it, saying, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. It seems complex, it seems dangerous, or I don't want to have to learn another tool. Why would it be important for there to be a not just personal, like one person on the staff learning how to do it, but let's talk about as a team with our nonprofit, how we're going to integrate our AI into our workflow every day.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that it can help you do, right? So that's obviously one reason to explore what AI is capable of doing for you. And there's a lot of things that you have to really watch out for. You have to understand AI, right? I mean, what happens when an intern, for example, takes your entire donor database and uploads that to a model? What does that mean? what is what does that mean for privacy? Are you violating a terms of service or something like that, right? So, and I don't want to say those things to scare you away from doing AI at all, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to really think about just at a basic level some parameters around what you can talk to the AI about and things you might want to not discuss with AI. And by discuss, I really just mean upload information to a platform like Claude or ChatGPT. So I think it's a combination of, okay, where are some gaps? How can we really be thoughtful about it, using AI to make our team far more efficient in all these different ways? So exploring different tools, different platforms, different workflows. And then I think it's also a matter of, okay, well, what do we have to be careful of? What's actually a real problem that could be even a legal issue for you versus what is something that maybe might scare donors or, be problematic with the board.
Right.
I think there's different levels of risk, acceptance and aversion for different organizations, depending on who's leading those organizations or your top
Yeah.
volunteers. So yeah, I think it's those two things. On the caution side, it's like, what do we actually really need to be worried about from a real legal standpoint, and how do we communicate this, and what do we need to think about when it comes to making sure all of our supporters and donors and volunteers are comfortable with what we're doing using AI as well.
Yeah, that gives us kind of a great place of jumping off. Let's get right into the granular because I think for a lot of people watching this, they're just like, that's awesome. I'm glad that you've convinced me this might be something I want to do, but what can I start with? Let's say for argument's sake, I'm not super techie. So I'm not a computer programmer or I'm like semi comfortable with technology. Where can I start right away with something? I know you mentioned when we spoke last that making agendas maybe might be the first thing, but if I wanted to just dabble or dip my toe in some of the tools that's possible, what's step one and what can I do with step one?
Well, the first thing I would do is train the tool you're using to understand your tone and your style, right? And this is a very easy thing to do, even on, I believe, the free versions of Claude. So I'm just going to share my screen here real quick to give you
Sure.
a
Yeah.
sense of what I'm looking at. This is Claude. Claude is Anthropic. So in the AI space, you've got two really big players, and I mean, maybe more now, but really you've got Anthropic, which is Claude, and then you've got OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, right? And
Sure.
and those are the tools that the vast majority of us are working with. Even if we're not necessarily going to those platforms, they're probably the tools that are powering a lot of the platforms that we're using. But anyway, you can go to Claude.ai. There's a free version, and it's actually pretty powerful. And you can do things like train it to, understand your speaking style and your tone. And it's as simple as just going to this choose style thing, and then you create and edit styles. And I'm not going to walk you through this because it's, first of all, I'm not, that's not necessarily what I do. But there's also people online who do a much better job of it. So I will drop in the chat a 6-minute YouTube video that I just watched last night. So I know it's legitimate, looks good. And it is very intuitive. I think most people, if you're familiar with, I don't know, using social media, for example, uploading content to YouTube, something like that, you'd probably find this to be pretty intuitive. But what you're essentially doing is you're going to take blog posts you've written, you're going to take social media posts you've written, you're going to take emails you've written, and you're going to put all these different pieces of content into Claude and say, this is how I write, this is how I operate, and it will create a style, and you can name it something. You could say this is, Jake's tone, Jake's writing style, or something like that. And it's still not going to be perfect. You're still always going to want to check your work if you're drafting an email or writing a blog post or putting something on social media. But it really does do a nice job of understanding your tone, your style. Then you can ask it to be more concise and more succinct, or maybe expand more and be more detailed and things like that. But that's the first thing I would do. Again, I would caution you, especially if you don't have a policy around this, just don't put any personal data in this, right? So don't upload a CSV of your donor information, obviously. I don't know why you would for this anyway. But if all you're doing is taking stuff you've written and it already exists on the internet anyway, there's no reason to take that and put it into Claude and have it, train on your style and your voice. And again, I'll put a YouTube video here in the chat that I would recommend. Like I said, I think it was pretty effective at doing this in like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would do that. Just get started on playing around with the tools, establish
For
your
writing.
voice, and then yeah, writing content. It'll help you get there a lot faster. You're definitely going to want to revision because it's one of those things where it starts to sound really good but can and not really personal. But again, creating your personal tone style will help you get to where you want to be much more quickly.
And I think that's where people tend to mess up is they take the whatever that Claude or ChatGPT gives them and they go, great, it wrote it. Copy, paste, send, or copy, paste, post. Whereas the correct way to use ChatGPT or Claude would be to let it do the bulk of the writing, get the outline, get the structure done, and then go back and fine tune. I'll share ChatGPT. So kind of the other. We talked about Claude as one. Let me share my screen for ChatGPT. I have the desktop app here, so this is you can actually use it. So can everyone see that? Awesome. So let's say I work for an animal shelter. I need a case for support to raise, can't type with hundreds of people watching me, a case for support to raise, we'll say $100,000, keep it nice and easy, to expand our kennels. And I'll just give it no more context. Please write a case statement for me. Now, without any context, maybe it's going to figure it out, maybe it won't. But again, this is just a tool. I have the upgraded version, which is faster, some more features, but this is a free tool that you can use. You can just go to OpenAI and immediately start using this without any cost. Let's see what it comes up with. All right, here's a strong draft for your case for support. All right, introduction. At a inner animal shelter name, we believe every animal deserves a second chance at life. Each year we rescue hundreds. We need your help to raise $100,000. So then it starts with the need, overcrowding and limited capacity. So it starts of like, here's the problem we've identified. The solution, expanding our kennels. With your support, we'll add number, impact, the more lives saved. Now, if you've been following our stuff for any amount of time, you know that this is kind of the structure that we preach in a case statement. So it has nailed the form of a case statement just because of what it knows about how case statements or case for supports are written. And we don't have a whole lot in here. So it says how you can help, donate today, sponsor, fundraise, spread the word. So what if I wanted to say, okay, that's great. I'm always really polite to AI. So when they take over the world, I'm one of the ones who are not enslaved. But yeah, I'd say that's great. Thank you. Always got to thank them. I want the CTA or the call to action here, how you can help, to be more focused, we'll say, more focused. So not four things. Give me just one and make it way more compelling and impact based. And I will change how I spelled compelling and I will hit send. So over here on the left, you have kind of my chat with chat. I'm kind of talking to it as I would like an assistant or as a copywriter or as someone that I'm reporting to. It doesn't really matter. And then over here on the other side, it should be rewriting it. So let's see here. It's spinning circle right now. So Justin, any thoughts or remarks as you're kind of seeing this right off the bat? Anything you want to point out that people may not have caught?
You bring up a good point of having a conversation with it and going back and asking it to revise. I think, you're the first effort, you can be pretty detailed. You can tell it what to include. I think it's also important to explain what not to include. Like if there are, some
Oh,
words you absolutely want to avoid, or if there are, some trends or some top, so the more detailed you can be, obviously the better it will be. But it doesn't have to be the first pass. You really should look at it as if you're having sort of a conversation with the platform. And
yeah,
that like you did. I did the same thing. I'm always like, "Thank you!" Exclamation marks. I want to be nice because
yeah.
the same thing. I don't want to be the first ones that the AI robots come and destroy. But yeah, it's very helpful to think of this as sort of an ongoing iteration and conversation. And then you can even take it and take it out and then rewrite it and then go back and say, I rewrote it to do this. Can you check grammar? Provide, ask me for, give some more suggestions around this particular topic. I'm really struggling with how to write a close to this particular post. Can you suggest some closes? So it's again, just kind of expediting those processes, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're having the conversations with it, you like some of it, you don't like some of it, tell it that and have it, have it help you kind of get past some of those points that might lead to writer's block in an ordinary situation. I think AI can really help you kind of push past those because we all get to that point where we're doing something and we just stare at our screen for like an hour because we're just stuck on trying to
Right.
write that hook or that close or that CTA or that subject line. Anytime you get to that point in a process, a creative process, and you're stuck, go to one of these tools and just have it give you some ideas for inspiration. You might not like the 10 that it gives you, but it might help you come up with an 11th that you created because it kind of spurred your imagination. So really have those conversations and use it as an iterative process as opposed to one prompt and expecting everything to be perfect right out of the gates.
So it sounds like it's really iterative. Like I think what people confuse is like I put in a thing and then it spits out a thing and then I have to use that thing somehow. Whereas you can have 10 messages back and forth with refinement and it's going to keep trying based on, hey, don't do these things, do these things. We have a question in the chat from Clapper J. Is there a place in ChatGPT to add your brand's voice and tone so it knows to retain information for prompted articles? Example, keywords, humble, business, informative, friendly, engaging. So yes, you can create custom ones that are permanently like that. But even if I wanted to do that right now with this one as kind of an example, I would again say thank you. um, and I would say make this more friendly, casual, and engaging, and less formal. And then in the case that I'm with an extra organization, I could even say, log on to our website at blah 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 blah.org and read the copy on there and say it in the same voice that all the copy is in the website. Or if I have a Word document, I can take the Word document, drop it in here, and say, use the same voice and tone that I would in this. But let's just see what this does. It's going to take some time to be able. I do want to acknowledge that it nailed the second thing by saying, here is one, the impact, more lives saved, your gift has single solution. We just want people to give. So it did change that. We'll give it a second to rewrite it. You can see it's already kind of working its magic, has this nice little, this is kind of a new animation. This is like new this month. So these tools are literally just coming out, brand new. So let's see how it is. Hey, Animal Lovers is the new title. It's like, okay, that's a little bit more friendly, definitely more casual. It's nailed the tone. It also has these little emojis that it's put for further tweaks, dog emoji, cat emoji, which I think is great. Why this matters. Right now, we're at full capacity, which means turning away animals that need us. More kennels equals more rescued pets. So they're not like following MLA grammar rules, but it's like a more casual, friendly, like something that you might text to your friend style while still keeping it professional enough to belong in a professional setting. So it's when you have that nuance of tone, or you want it to match the stuff that you're doing, you can literally just ask for it. And if it doesn't do it right, you can adjust. I will get it usually as far as I can with these little tweaks. And then when I'm done, I'll come over here and I'll copy it with this button, and then I'll paste it into wherever I'm going to use it for. And then I'll go from there. Um, Another thing you mentioned, Justin, just say, I can say, great. Could you now make 10 social media posts based on this? So again, you're like, instead of coming up with 10, iterative posts on this, you're just going to let it do it by itself. So it's going to come over here in the urgent. We need more space for full capacity. Donate now. More Kindles, more lives saved. So you don't have to use all 10, but as Justin pointed out, maybe some of these spark ideas for one, or maybe you can use 5 of these. But instead of having to come up with all of these ideas and generate any kind of creative writing on your own, you're able to let it do it for you and work back and forth in conjunction. I know this sounds like an ad for these people, which it's not. I'm just saying these tools are free and available to use. So we're not sponsored by Claude or OpenAI. Not yet, anyways. If y'all want to, let me know. But it really is just something that I use every day for all kinds of stuff with our clients. So this is kind of the writing overview. We could do a whole nother hour just on the writing piece, but I just wanted to kind of demonstrate how powerful some of that is, and as we kind of transition to the next one. So we know that writing emails and newsletters and website copy, case for support, you can upload your own stuff. Let's talk about a kind of the next lane. So Justin, if you feel like nonprofits, hey, I'm already using it for writing a lot, what's something that's maybe one level more advanced that I could really hone in on, and something that it does really well already?
Yeah. So some of the new tools, some of the I can't remember if we were talking about it now or maybe just 20 minutes ago, but there has been a pretty big leap in AI in the past 6 months in particular, right? The
Yeah.
growth over the fall of new models and updates and versions and whatnot has allowed for just a lot more features and a lot more functionality. One of the coolest things I've seen in the past month is deep research.
Okay.
Google's got one, so if you have like a Google One account, it is a paid level, but I think you can get it for like $20 a month, so it's not terrible. I think ChatGPT is a bit more expensive, like $200 a month, so
Yeah.
it starts to get more expensive. But very powerful if any part of your job involves spending time online researching things. And when I may say time, I mean like days, right? Like if you're trying to if you're trying to put together an impact report from everything you did over the past year, and you want to look at legislative activity, and you want to look at events in the city that you sponsored or were part of, or just anything that is available to search online and would otherwise take you or an intern or somebody else days of time to really compile, and half an hour or an hour, a tool like Gemini's deep research can put together a really detailed list of, okay, here's the impact. And the thing that I like about it is it really provides all the different sources too. And that's really important because you've got to check all of those because
For
again,
sure.
it does hallucinate. AI makes up stuff all of
Can you
the time.
define
Okay.
hallucinate for people who don't know
Yes.
what the term might mean?
Yeah. It basically means AI just making stuff up out of thin air that does not exist. Right. And I'm trying to think of this. There's a very specific example that I had recently, but it basically just kind of sent me in one direction, and I started looking into that direction a little bit. And like, this isn't even close to true. Like, I did. And then what's funny is I went back and I said, hey, AI agent, why did you send me? It's like, oops, my mistake. I did make that mistake, and it kind of like learns from the mistakes that you point out to it.
Yeah.
But anyway, hallucinate. Yeah, hallucinate is basically AI making errors, right? So what I like about something like deep research and the way it provides that research back to you is it cites everything and it says, this and this happened because of this. So, if you wanted to say something along the lines of, you know, we helped win 10% more cases in front of, district courts for environmental causes this past year, you can find the actual evidence of that, and you can go check that evidence online based on the citations that something like a deep research will provide for you. So it's a great way if you have a lot of data to organize, to research, to understand. There's another one like another Google tool, Notebook LM, I think is what it is, or maybe LLM. It's a really nice. Journalists use it all the time, right? Because it really kind of helps them. They can upload documents and helps them kind of synthesize that material and understand it, and give them sort of notes at a high level. So instead of having to read through like 150 pages of a court document, they can give you the summary. And again, you can go back and check. So you can say on page 54, it says this. You can go back and you can actually review and verify from the source. But instead of having to read word for word a 150-page court document, a journalist can use Notebook to go in and understand in 15 minutes what's in there. And then if there's a key point that they want to report on, it is absolutely imperative that they go and check that actual document in that place to make sure that that's true. Which
So it's
actually
kind of the inverse of
tangent.
the
Oh, go ahead.
writing. So instead of taking a small idea and expanding it out to like a big written piece of text that you can then share, you can also give it big written piece of text and say, summarize this for me in 15 words or less. And you can read these massive documents, or you could copy paste. Everyone sees those like, I accept the terms and conditions when you install software. You could copy paste the whole thing in there and be like, is there anything weird I should look out for in this? It'll read 15,000 words instantly and be like, hey, line 7B of page 42, make sure that you're agreeing to give your data to these people or whatever.
Awesome use case. Awesome use case. Legal contracts, right? And again, do not do this in place of an attorney, right? Because an attorney
Yeah,
can
it's not legal advice.
even if it cites it, but it can help you understand those things, right? So maybe when you go to your attorney, you know where to start and what questions to ask and what should we be looking out for. Um, Again, just a way to sort of expedite all of these different processes, from journalists doing investigative reporting to donor relations expert putting together an end of year stewardship report. There's a lot that you can do. I know of some companies that are focused on like impact reporting, for example,
Yeah,
in the
let's
nonprofit
talk about
space.
that. Why would it be advantageous to use AI for impact reporting as opposed to just going through our own materials and talking about the good that we've.
Well, first of all, think about the need of personalization, right? Like how important it is to personalize impact reporting for your audiences and your donors. And, most places are going to spend the time and the resources for your very top principal donors to have the personalized approach, but that big chunk of mid-level donors,
Right.
the bottom of the funnel, annual fund donors, to personalize at that level is so hard to do unless you have a cheat tool, right? Where you can actually go in and say, all right, here are our 10 donor personas, and this is what's unique about each of them. Here's the impact we had in the past year. Create, and here's an example of an impact report from previous years. Create impact reports for these 10 different segments and personas. And just like that, instead of having to sit there and take weeks to pour over that material and think about each, you get to that starting point. Then you can go and you can revise and you can, but it allows you to speak much more personally, especially when it comes to things like impact for your different audiences, which is so critical to keeping them engaged.
And I think people will find that even like the data refinement piece is super useful too. Like being able to customize an outreach to a donor. And as you pointed out, as you get down to those lower giving levels, if you get down into the like $100 or less, you can't spend even 10 minutes per. What if you have 1,000 of those? That's your month's worth of work. You have to work on other activities, but you can import that into a database. One of the things we can do, because one of the things you mentioned early on was being careful about not putting donor data and uploading it to any of these platforms, is pull out the names, the addresses, and then just assign them a number, donor one, donor two, all the way down to donor 5,086 or whatever. And then have it write it with that in mind, and then reverse back, use your mail merge to then drop their name in on the other end. So again, a little bit more advanced, but there are ways that you can pretty quickly do that while still protecting donor privacy, still not uploading donor data to the cloud about how much they've given. And it gets a custom appeal or a custom thank you, or again, to the impact reporting, here are the things that your gift specifically changed. And I think people are underutilizing that. But as people kind of catch on, give it 3, 4 years, and it's going to be standard. One of the quotes that I use all the time is talking to somebody who's asking about, is AI going to replace me? Like, no, but the people who are great at using AI definitely will. And that has really resonated with me. It was like, it's the same thing, people who switch from typewriters to Microsoft Word on a computer. It's like, are, computers going to replace the people who were phenomenal typists and phenomenal writers? Is like, no, but they can do more. They're faster with a computer. There's more tools. You can do fonts, you can do photos now. So it's not about, oh, these things are going to take over my job. It's just the people who are well versed and kind of stay just a little bit up to date with what is possible are going to pass the people who are 3 or 5 years behind that.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's, you know, it, definitely a justifiable concern. And I mean, look, there probably are a few like data entry roles that won't exist anymore or something like that.
Yeah.
But there will be new roles that are replaced by that in different parts in the process. And in a lot of cases, this is I think I've seen like the meme where, I wanted I wanted AI to replace like the, vacuuming and cleaning, and I wanted to do more of the art, and it looks like AI is doing more of the art and I'm doing more of the vacuum. And that I haven't found to be true at all. What I found is actually it allows you to really do more of the fun, creative brainstorming and create more content and do exponentially more of those things, as opposed to, because it's doing the mundane. It's collating that research. It's helping understand. It's helping you draft personas and whatnot. So yeah, I would agree with that statement all the way. It's going to change the job market for sure, and it's going to take some jobs, yes, but it's also going to create other jobs, and that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years.
Yeah. What, to that last point there that you talked about, just want to get your take on the future can be nebulous, because again, I have no way of predicting what this is going to look like 5 years from now. I have some ideas, but let's say 1 year out, what are some of the things that are coming down the pipeline, or like we're seeing them happen, but they're not quite dialed in yet. They're kind of in beta. We see some stuff with video. What are some things that are going to change and going to happen in the next year that everyone should just kind of pay attention to?
Yeah, so a friend of mine, her name is Ellie Rader. She's here in the Twin Cities. She has this thing called getvincent.io is the website. And for nonprofits in particular, they're working on this service called Founder's Brain, where what they do is they go out, they interview the founder of a company, or excuse me, of a nonprofit, and over a few weeks start to sort of build that persona. And this is a really good kind of transition point from the will it take my job. So many nonprofit founders, those have been successful for 20, 30 years, and organization is them, right? It is their personality. It's who they are, it's how they operate. And when they leave, that nonprofit is at very real risk of going through some difficult times, if not, folding entirely, because everything was built around the mindset of that particular founder. And what Vincent is doing, what Ellie is doing, and they're working on is the ability to actually sort of clone that mentality. And for those founders, that's a great thing because they want to be able to retire and they
Right.
want to see their nonprofit go on forever, and they want to be able to see that nonprofit go on with their original vision.
Without
So
them
here you're able to take
3 hours a week.
without them having to be, yeah. So even if they're still there, it helps them kind of, they might want to work for another 20 years. And if that's the case, then they can kind of clone themselves and they can be, part of more meetings, and, they have more of their input into things because, so that's a pretty advanced tool. And, that's one example, I think. And, I know Ellie and team are fairly early on in that process, and, working to sort of build around that. What's interesting is, there's obviously a software component to that, right? There's the AI learning. But the model, and it's pretty clear on Vincent's website, is we are a services company because it's very important that you understand how to use those tools. And there's a very real human element to that. And there's going to be a very real human element to that for quite some time.
Yeah.
So there's this new phrase that's kind of entered. We're all familiar with SaaS, right? The software as a service model, like for an online giving platform. You buy a subscription, they hand it over to you. Maybe they give you a half an hour launch call, maybe not. It's pretty intuitive. You go in, you set things up, you put your payment processor in, write what you want the give now button to say, and so on and so forth. That's a SaaS platform, right? Meaning that the software is the service, right? You're going in, you're subscribing to the software, it's the service. But now with AI, because it actually does need a lot of human elements to have it really sing for you, there's these software delivered services. So really what you're buying is a service. You're going to an agency, you're going to an outfit, you're going to a company, and they're providing you with what ultimately is a service to better understand who you are, to provide better personas, to do more marketing, to do the founder's brain thing, what have you. And they're working with you. People are working with you. They're the ones using the technology on your behalf and delivering an outcome for you. So I think we're probably going to see a lot of that too, because
Yeah.
again, it goes back to that question. Is it AI going to replace you? Well, not necessarily, but there's going to be these very new jobs and roles that are entirely built around leveraging the technology of AI.
Yeah, interfacing with it, being the medium between the thing that needs to happen and the tool. It's like, oh, well, we invented the cotton gin. Well, we have to have someone who knows how to drive and operate the cotton gin. So no, there's not as many people who are being paid to gather cotton, but there is the case that we have a job, someone who drives it and pulls fields of it out now. And
Yep,
I think
yep.
the same
And
metaphor.
to fix it and repair it and build parts
Right,
for
yeah,
it.
a whole other set of jobs. Yeah, that build new ones, improve it. All those things
Right.
are still true. One thing I did while we were waiting, because I knew it was going to take a long time, is I did try a deep research prompt. So I just want to show everyone really quick. I think everyone will find this really interesting. So here's my screen again, deep research. So I asked on the deep research mode of ChatGPT, find me grant making organizations that support animal shelters in Atlanta, Georgia. Again, this is super vague. You'd want to be way more specific than this, obviously. And it said, could you specify you're looking for grants, private foundations, government agencies, corporate sponsors, or all types? And I just said, all types, please. It had follow-up questions to improve it. Like, do you want rescue operations, veterinary care? It had all these things that I could have dialed in. I was just like, no, 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 just give me what you got. All types. It took about 10 minutes. It's been running the last 10 or 15 minutes. And it found so much stuff. I was blown away just now. This is the first time I've tried this feature. So I'm learning right now with everyone here. But here are the grant making shelters and what they do. Private foundations that apply for grants here, corporate sponsors, Petco Love. And as you pointed out, Justin, right here at the bottom, all the sources and where they found all these. So these are all the websites it checked. And it just gives you this nice summary of all the things. And now I can tell it to summarize it even further. But again, not a perfect tool. I could have done a much better job of prompting it in this case, but I just wanted a quick run and gun of like, what does deep research actually look like? And it's pretty outstanding for a first pass. It has all these detail about how much they give away and to whom and why and where you can apply for your own organization. So I want to close with, because we have about maybe 10 minutes here, a little less than 10 minutes left, with 5 ways that nonprofits or fundraisers can kind of use AI right now. But before we do that, I want to see if anyone has any questions they want to throw in the chat that we can kind of talk through or address, or find resources for you if we don't know the answer. Any questions from anybody? Kind of open floor on that. If not, we'll go right into some 5 practical uses for this that you can start with right away. All right. Jared says, Justin, how would you address a nonprofit board who is cautious about even basic AI tools for donor communications because it feels disingenuous? That's a big one, especially for video and that kind of stuff. How do nonprofits maintain trust and the personal touch of genuine donor relationships? Also great, while still utilizing these tools, especially as we move into the future of AI becomes even more advanced. Any thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll give you one answer that assumes certain things about the board in particular, right? So let's say this is, in this case, a smaller nonprofit, very cash strapped, and the board has given you a directive recently that you need to be a lot more active on social media, right? So that's what they've said. And but they're concerned that, and for good reason, because I one of the things with camcorder AI is we're not like generating stuff like your Sora or your Veo, right, where you're actually creating videos that don't exist at all. What Camcorder AI does is actually expedites the video editing process. So, like in a like our video library, for example, if you want to upload like a terabyte of Google Drive video that's not labeled, organized in any way, shape, or form, and you want to have a paragraph description for each clip, our platform does that for you, which is like really helpful if you're a video editor.
Yeah.
But again, so I digress. Anyway, getting back to here is authenticity. They're saying, I want you to create more social media content. I want you to be authentic. I want you to do all of those things, but we're really concerned about AI. Then I would just simply look at what this can actually help you do, right? You can either go out and you can hire maybe, another person who just sits there all day long and writes social media post after social media post, or you can work with your current marketing team who can use these platforms like we've just demonstrated throughout this call to actually draft 10 post ideas for the month of March for an organization that, works with, women in the Denver area and does this and that and has these different attributes to it. And then just show them that this is, first of all, talk about how there's no concern for donor data because we're not touching donor data. It's not part of this. We're talking about who we are, which it's on our website. So we're not feeding we're not feeding a platform something it doesn't already know. We're just asking it to take that information and make it work better for us. And oh, by the way, we can do this at a cost of this, which is 10 times less than if we
Yeah.
were not
Way, way.
able to use AI. So I would look at it, and so again, we have the persona of your board that wants you to do more digital marketing but does not want to spend more money. So what you're doing is you're showing them how AI helps them do those two things without also being clear about how there's no risk associated with your use case here. So I would, just like with anything, when you're trying to make a case with a board or a donor or whatnot, understand their motivations, what they want, what they don't want, and then think about how that tool can fit into, those parameters that they've set for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great thoughts. Any other questions? For those looking to dip their toe in the AI waters, what is one work task that you've transitioned to AI and never do manual now? I could probably think of one of these too. I would say reading long pieces of text that I don't need to dig in. I think you mentioned that as an easy one. I'm sure you've got another one for you, but if it is a super long document, I will start by getting the AI to summarize it for me. I'll, say it's a 20-page PDF and I'm supposed to review it for all kinds of stuff. And say, great, drop the 20-page PDF into ChatGPT saying, hey, my goal is X. I am trying to Y. Please read this for me and point out these things, summarize these things, and I'll have a more detailed than what I showed today, kind of a paragraph response, and let it do all that for me. Not that I couldn't read those and interpret those things myself, but it does it in about 8 seconds, whereas it would have taken me 10 minutes at least, maybe another 20 after that to interpret and write down notes, and then I can be off to the races. So it's not that it's doing it better, it's just so much faster than that. Well, what about for you, Justin? What was one that you use kind of every day?
I'm always writing email with AI because you know it's a good idea to kind of think about yourself and be honest about the things you're good at and things you're not as good at. Like I feel like I'm pretty good from a marketing sense at really high level ideas, right? And sort of driving some of those ideas. But then when it comes on the day to day, the tactical, saying, writing 10 different emails for 10 different personas, number one, it takes time to do that. Number two, I spend so much time just staring at the screen thinking, where do I start? Right. So to go in there, so again, you can have your personas. You can even work with AI to create your personas. But let's say you didn't, you'd have your personas. You can start there, upload those, say, I need to write emails for each one of these personas. It needs to do this. It's an end of year CTA, it's this, that, and the other thing. And then it gives you a really good starting point. And then sometimes it's too verbose. So I know this needs to be much shorter. I know, I understand people's attention span. Focus on a really effective hook. Give me a sentence at the top of the email that is
Yeah, just
incredibly
after that
powerful and
first
really
line. Yeah.
exactly. And then you can, and then I can find it pretty easy to flow from there once you kind of get that initial, starting point. So, but for me, that's email is probably where I use this most frequently.
Any final questions before we give kind of final thoughts here from anybody? Well, if you're watching this, like most people are from the future, you can certainly get in contact with us. I'll share a slide here so that y'all can kind of see where you can reach both Justin or me or our team if you want to learn more. This is a QR code that just takes you to our site. I hope that that's sharing correctly. You can book a 30-minute call with one of our team members if you want to learn more about how we might be able to help. Our website is pridephilanthropy.com. And then Justin, if you want to talk about your company and what y'all do and where people might be able to find you.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I mentioned with that kind of long-winded answer earlier, authentic video content. That's what we do. We use AI to help you produce a lot more authentic video content. So if you've got a lot of B-roll or you want to produce a lot of B-roll and you want to get that into a storyboard and a video draft, you can do that on our platform in a matter of minutes. You upload the content, it analyzes it, it says, this is a picture of a woman taking a dog for a walk outside of our shelter, right? And then you click then you prompt our platform, just like we showed you how to prompt like Chat GPT and Claude, and it will actually draft a video for you. Not perfect. Again, you're going to want to probably take that, export it, maybe put it into like a CapCut or Premiere Pro and put some finishing touches like graphics on it. But if video production is something that is time consuming, and it is, and sometimes expensive, and it is, we aim to really kind of reduce that. Our focus right now is on short form video. So again, we work in the e-commerce space. If you've got some sunglasses or some shoes or something like that you want to sell, and you need 50 different versions for different audiences on Facebook, we really can help expedite that process. So yeah, Camcorder AI is AI applied to authentic video production. The footage is real, the people are real, the story is real. Again, we're just reducing some of those big bottlenecks, like logging footage or drafting that first story.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Reminder, we do these at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. So if you want to sign up for the next one, it'll be free and it'll be in March. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day and have a great weekend, everybody.